speaking of well, it's a good lead in to our next topic here about legacy and takes and what that means for the media and us as fans and all that stuff. So really good podcast. So the Draymond Green show, him and Draymond Green, JJ Redick, Tommy Alter, who's always on JJ Redick's podcast, and Stephen A. Smith for part of it. They did a live live podcast basically in New York. And so it's JJ Redick and Tommy, and then they bring Draymond Green out. They talk to Draymond Green. They bring Stephen A. Smith for the last 20 minutes or something like that. If you haven't heard it, go listen to it. It was fantastic. I
listened to the part. Okay, so it was pretty funny because JJ Redick was like, "So I want to talk to you about why did you try to pull Jaylen Brown's pants down in the final?" Yeah, and he went into this whole thing. Yeah, that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, so just to set this up, so what happened last week was after they won the championship, Draymond Green basically went on his podcast and took a blowtorch to everybody. Basically, just carpet bombed the entire industry. He went after Skip Bayless. He went after Nick Wright. I mean, he went after Kendrick Perkins. He went after everybody. It was just like, what is going on? It was 42 minutes of him just going, fuck this guy, fuck this guy, fuck this guy.
Like Dennis Rodman had a podcast in the mid-90s.
It's like, dude.
That's kind of what it's like. Draymond's a better I guess Draymond's a better player than Dennis Rodman, but like, yeah, I'm just saying, just imagine for older people, imagine if Dennis Rodman had a podcast in 1995, how ridiculous it would have been.
Yeah. So it was just kind of confusing. It was just like, wow, really? Like, this is really like, boy, you're really just going after everybody here. And it's like, so.
I kind of feel like NBA players think this way. He's just saying it. He's got a podcast, so he's going out,
Yeah, I mean, I'm just I'm amazed at how much this stuff really seemed to bother him, And he talked about on the podcast with JJ Redick that he was like, they were like, let's record it after you do the thing with JJ Redick. He's like, no, I got stuff to say. We got to get this out. It was like, so he now I don't have a problem with players taking shots at media who likes to take shots at them. Like, I don't have any issue with that. You want to fire at them. I don't like what we do on television where it's everybody screaming at everybody, but this wasn't a debate show. This was just Draymond talking by himself. So I get it. I'm not sure, it was just like, wow, he's really just going after everybody. I'm not sure what this is, but the only thing I didn't like about it was he called Kendrick Perkins I would call it a racial slur. It's not a word I'm going to repeat it's not a word we're going to repeat on this podcast.
What was his point with Kendrick Perkins?
His point seemed to be that like Kendrick Perkins was just kind of going along with what the media company wanted him to do. Like, he was just following along and he wasn't, stating his own opinion. And it was just kind of like, first of all, it was ridiculous for Draymond to get that upset about that. Like, Kendrick Perkins is just a former player. He's calling it how he sees it, and so Kendrick Perkins was one of the people who said they weren't going to win any more championships after Durant left. So, so it's got all that in there. And then, listen, to Draymond's credit. So my whole point here is I'm fine. You want to call people out. I get it. Name calling. Come on. Like, how old are we?
Well, I mean, the thing is that, I think what makes professional athletes different from a lot of people, like from you and I and a lot of other people, is that they take all this stuff personally. And it motivates them in a way that most people don't get motivated. So, yeah, it's just it's one of those things where it's like, whereas people like you and I are kind of like, yeah, I don't want to get that caught up in that. I'm going to protect my mental health and whatever else. Athletes kind of don't give a shit. They're they'll get into like a bad headspace just to motivate them so they're ready to go. So it's just, It is what it is.
Yeah. So I don't, the name calling is not, I don't think it's cool. I don't think it's cool when when Skip Bayless goes on his show and calls Russell Westbrook, or he calls LeBron.
Yeah, or when he called Chris Bosh Spice.
Bosh Spice. Yeah.
It's like, dude, really?
Like, we should have a higher standard than that, and these TV networks should say, hey, knock that shit off. Like, that doesn't contribute to the conversation.
There's not that many people watching Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe on Undisputed, or watching first. I mean, it's literally like 500,000 viewers or something, because it's on during when most people are at work. So
I get it. I just don't. I can't abide. I can't abide that. I just think that's over the line. And listen, to Draymond Green's credit, he did another episode after that and apologized. He said he shouldn't have used that word. He basically said, look, in my neighborhood, that's, we used it, and I didn't mean it in a nasty way. But I shouldn't have said that. And he said, he basically did this whole speech about how he's learning. He's trying to figure out how to do this, and that's good. I appreciate that, that he corrected and didn't try to, even though he's telling everybody else, you have to stand on everything that you say. He at least owned up to that. So really interesting stuff about that live show that they did. So they show this, they pull down a video screen and they show Draymond's highlights from the playoffs of him getting in people's face, and where he puts his legs on Jaylen Brown's head, and he tries the Memphis game where he pulls the guy down when he's trying to dunk the ball. All the antics that Draymond Green does. So they show about 30-second to a minute video of everything that he did, and then so they all sit back down, and then JJ Redick goes, so the most important question here is, why are you such a dick? and the whole audience dies laughing. And Draymond bends over. He's laughing so hard. He's like, why are you such a dick? It's so fantastic. What I really loved about the podcast is JJ Redick is smart enough to know, I'm just going to set Draymond Green up and just let him go at it.
Well, the great thing is that J.J. Redick's a former player, so I feel like he can say, and ask different questions that regular reporters or whatever couldn't ask. So that really makes it,
Exactly. And so he just, and so Draymond goes into this whole speech about how he's trying to get his team motivated, and he's like, listen, game 2 of the finals, I told everybody before, I said it on my podcast, I'm going to go out there and start shit. He's like, I said I was going to do it, so I knew that's what I was going to do. And he's like, he also said, he was glad that Steph really bailed him out in Game 4 because Draymond up to that point in the series wasn't very good. And so, and then he's like, and then at the end he's just like, I don't know, I'm an asshole. I don't know what to tell you. It's just, oh God, it was fantastic. But they said a couple of things that my point about that is that this stuff with Draymond is calculated. This is all, like, everybody thinks that he just wings it. No. Draymond Green this is all calculated. He's very smart. He knows exactly what he's doing. So anybody who thinks, oh, well, that was just, no. These are the best athletes in the world. They know exactly what they're doing. So he said a couple of things. Like, he said that the Warriors, Draymond Green said this. He said the Warriors would not have won if they didn't have Kevin Durant in 2017.
Right.
And so that caused, obviously that caused a bit of a debate. Now, he did say, all right, we praised Kevin Durant. Maybe the media didn't praise him as much as they should have, but we did. And I agree with it. I think that, without Durant, and 2017 Cleveland's team was better than they were in 2016. Like, I think the 2017 Cavs were as offensively one of the best teams we've ever had. And so I think without Durant, you saw the limitations of what was going on with the Warriors in the last 3 games of the 2016 series that they lost. So I think Cleveland in 2017 was really fantastic, and I think they would have beaten them. Now, 2018, maybe not, because Kyrie had been traded. But yeah, I tended to agree with him. I think the Warriors needed him.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that because Durant can just get his own shot from wherever he wants. Whenever he wants, he can get his own shot. And the Warriors didn't, without Durant, they didn't really have that. And I know people are thinking, well, what do you mean? Steph Curry won 2 MVPs in a row. Yeah, but, the other problem is that if you get deeper into the playoffs, Steph Curry can get kind of banged up because you can get more physical with him. And that's what happened in 2016. His knee was never completely right after he hurt it in the first round of the playoffs. And that was part of the problem. That's why in Game 7 he's trying to dribble past Kevin Love and he can't get past him because his knee was messed up. He didn't have enough explosiveness. So now, is that a little different now, maybe? Because Steph Curry, he's got more experience. He's physically stronger.
That's the other thing that Draymond said. And he said that at that time, Steph was not the kind of guy who's like, all right, give me the ball. I'm going to score here. He said, now, which was kind of cool for me because Draymond basically confirmed what I think I've been watching in the last playoffs. I said Steph's playing as well as he's ever played. And Draymond basically said the same thing. Now, because of Steph getting in the weight room, getting bigger, you can't bump him off like you used to be able to. Like he gave this example where at the end of Game 6 in the fourth quarter where Steph's driving by Al Horford, he's like, in the past, Al Horford would have just bumped Steph Curry in the hip and Steph would have not been able to get to the rim. He's like, but because of how strong he is now, he's able to do that. And he's able to basically, he can get you a bucket anytime you need it or make the right play for you. And I think that, that was really cool that Draymond said that because he's like, Steph can now, he's basically saying Steph can now get a basket whenever you need it. And he repeated exactly what you said. Kevin Durant was already there. When we got him, he was already, just give me the ball. I can score on anybody in any situation. It doesn't matter. And so I think that,
what people need to understand is in 2016 and 2017. So they had Steph and Clay, but Clay is more like, Clay can sort of sometimes he'll get a shot off the dribble, and then he'll do catch and shoot. But going to the basket, he isn't as good,
Right.
So then you look at that 2016 team. Who else did they have that was going to do that? I mean, Draymond was a little bit more of a reliable shooter back then. But, I mean, Harrison Barnes, Festus Ezeli, Iguodala was still kind of in his prime, but it's not like Iguodala was like the number one guy on Philadelphia before he got to the Warriors, and that didn't really go anywhere. So he needed to be part of it. So they didn't really have that guy who could just do that, and that becomes a problem.
Right.
Especially when you get into the finals, teams can get really, as the Cavs did, they got really physical with them. And even as that's why the Warriors are so good because they still almost won the series. But,
Yeah, it's the difference between like the strength and numbers era and then like when they became a super team. It's a different it's just a different dynamic. The other thing that he Draymond talked about that I wanted to bring up to you was he talked about new media versus old media, right? And so he's made a big deal about this is the new media and we're not going to take any crap from you and a bunch of this stuff. And so he basically I don't quite understand it. What I was getting from him, kind of watching it again was that the new media is like where they're literally analyzing the game. They're talking about the nuts and bolts. Like if you go on YouTube, you can get an explanation and breakdowns of everything that the teams are doing on both sides of the ball. So you get a really good idea of what's happening, and they're just giving you the nuts and bolts of what's happening. And then, old media, he was basically saying is hot takes. Like the stuff they do.
Hot takes and narratives.
Right. Yeah. Hot takes, narrative, legacy. Those are all of the things that the old media always wants to talk about. Which, by the way,
I'm not saying that all those things are completely incorrect, but sometimes, I mean, like we've listened to Colin Cowherd for a long time now. I feel like the narrative is starting to just overtake the facts. And even in the past, when I look back on some of his takes on different things, I'm like, some of that was more narrative than it was what was actually happening. But
yeah, at least with him, it's his narrative, though. He's not usually grabbing it from nowhere. But, I mean, so, well, first of all, okay, so what are your thoughts on new media versus old media?
I mean, well, oh God, we could spend forever on this. we'll just limit it to sports media. So it's definitely, I think overall it's a good thing because there's more information and there's more with new media. Sometimes there can be more good information. That's not always true.
Right.
There is some new media where it's still just hot takes, you know. I think that's more when old media goes into new media to try to get more, like Skip Bayless has a podcast now.
Right.
You know. Colin Cowherd's got a podcast, you know, it's kind of, but if you listen to like JJ Redick, that's a little different. If you listen to, even, I mean, like Zach Lowe, he's on ESPN, but if you listen to his podcast, that's hoop nerd kind of stuff. I mean, you're, you know, and then like if you listen to like, if you listen to Lebertard, like if you listen to Tom Haberstroh and Amin Al-Hassan and a few of the other guys, some of that can be like hoop nerd stuff, and a lot of it's just ridiculous, but that's their thing. But yeah, I mean, overall it's good, you know, more information, especially more analytical based stuff where we're really paying attention to what happened in the game. Jason Timpf on Hoops Tonight, like he does a pretty good job. Sometimes I disagree with him, but I think overall he'll really analyze, like I'll listen to his podcast and then I will actually learn something. Whereas, you know, when you're watching old media, a lot of times you're not really learning anything. It's just kind of entertainment. It's kind of a clown show.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say that like and it's the same thing with like political media or anything else when it comes to old media versus new media, right? In new media, there is some aspect of it that, okay, this is good stuff. This is more informative. This is more interesting. This is more analytical, right? But that's not always the case. You know, it's still there is still kind of some hot take stuff going on. So yeah, I kind of like it. I guess maybe I don't really like how old media is kind of coming into new media, like doing podcasting and stuff, because they're doing the same shit that they do on TV. And it's like, because they're old and they have more of an audience, hopefully that doesn't suck away any of the attention from the newer people who are in the space, who are trying to do something interesting and do something better than the old media. So, yeah.
But I thought it was the one thing I disagree with Draymond Green on is that he's saying, well, on First Take, Undisputed, those debate shows, well, you should analyze the game and explain it to me, teach people what's going on in basketball instead of saying all this nonsense. Like, that's fine, but that's not what those shows are for.
Right.
Like, Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe are not basketball analysts. Like, that's not their job. So it's like you're asking for people to be able to do something that they're not equipped to do anyway. You know, so it's like, no, they're going to do what sells. Their job is to get TV ratings, and it's supposed to be entertainment, like you said. So, yes, I can understand why you're, you know, now, I don't like the way Skip Bayless takes shots at people.
What I don't like is that, and I agree with that. What I don't really like is that, and this, we've said this multiple times, like, people need to understand this, whether you're watching sports media or political media. When you're watching one of these debate shows on ESPN or FS1, or you're watching Fox News or even MSNBC or CNN, a lot of times, a lot of this stuff, it's a clown show. It's ridiculous. Don't take it seriously, and don't let it really inform your decision making, particularly when it comes to important issues, because it's just kind of nuts. It's a mess. Okay.
Yeah, and you know, the design of a lot of that stuff is to get everybody screaming at each other. You know, so I just, it's like, yeah.
With sports, it doesn't matter as much, but they do this stuff with political media too, and that's actually dangerous. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so I get what he's saying about, you know, it's like he's trying to fix the old media. It's like, dude, you're not changing this. Like, that train's running. You're not stopping that. You know, so, yeah, I get what you're saying, but everybody can't do what you're talking about. You know, it's like, well, people are listening to them and believing them. Well, you can't, you know, some of this stuff, and we're going to talk about.
I mean, I understand that is a problem, because it's like, guys, you got to see through this stuff and see it as entertainment. You can't take this seriously. But I don't know. So I like the fact that he's saying that, but.
Yeah. Yeah, I get his goal, but I'm not sure, you know, what